Welcome
to the joy of coding.
Hello, and welcome to episode 362 of The Joy of Coding. My name is Mike Conley. It's so good to have you here. It's, we're going to be... We're going to be live hacking on some Firefox stuff today. Quelle surprise. But this is good. I don't know if you can tell, there was a little bit of glitching behind me. I forgot my green screen today, so I'm trying something a little bit different where I'm using just the color of the wall behind me, which happens to be a shade of blue, to key my head out, and it may or may not, it may or may not work correctly. So if you end up seeing blur around me today, that's what's going on. My apologies. But with that having been said, let's get started. Let me share my screen. All right, it's April 10th, 2024, episode 362. A reminder, no plan survives breakfast. I think I know what I want to do today. And for example, I just realized one thing I might want to do is, you can see that the background behind me is blue. I'm going to disable auto white balance. Whoop. And I think that might actually help here. I think that might help. I think the white balance was adjusting maybe as I was gesturing. So let me just do that, and then we can continue. All right, that looks okay to me. Okay, no plan survives breakfast. I think I know how things are going to go today, but we might spend some time adjusting my camera, or we might get stuck, we might get sidelined. That's all okay. The joy of coding is all about sort of capturing what I do daily, regularly, without a whole lot of pre-planning or, without the solutions having been pre-written. So you're getting to see me actually struggle and deal with things as I deal with them, engineering-wise. And that might mean I get stuck, sidelined, distracted. Who knows what will happen. But you'll get to see it. You'll be with me the whole time. It'll be a great time. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that the agenda that we're looking at is something that you have access to. If you're watching this on Air Mozilla, check out the details section over there. If you're watching this on diode.zone or YouTube, check out the video description for a link to the agenda. And if you're watching this on Twitch, it's down in the channel or stream details. I can't remember if it's channel or stream details, but it should be down below. And as this little thing spins, the agenda will update, and if you reload the page, it should have the most up-to-date state of the document. Now, some questions actually came in during the last episode. So if this is a reminder, if you have questions that you would like me to try to answer, you can just submit them. There's a rate this episode link in the agenda, and if you fill out that form, one of the questions at the end is like, do you have any questions for me? And I'll do my best to try and answer them on the stream. I haven't really pre-thought these answers, so I'm going to read these questions out, and we can try and address them. I don't know if I'll address them immediately, or if I have pre-read some of them, but I haven't really thought about my answers. But the one I did pre-read talked about you can I can try answering these questions maybe while we're waiting for a build or something. So let's read out the questions, get a sense of them, and then figure out our timing. Like, we might try and address some of these questions or answer some of these questions during a pause of engineering work, say if I'm waiting for a build or something. Okay, so let's read out the questions. I'm seeing you doing special builds, like a Thunderbird build, a debug build. I'm really curious where and how this is working. How does Mock know what folders or files it needs to use or override in the case of Thunderbird? I guess I'm intrigued in the build system in general, but the question above doesn't seem to be covered in the Firefox docs. That would be interesting to have a 5-minute crash course on if and when you're stuck waiting for a build to finish. Okay, I can try. I'm not an expert on the build system per se. I have some experience with it. I can try and talk a little bit about it. Leftmost Cat asks, I heard Firefox is a browser for nerds. Is this true? It can be. It's supposed to be a browser for everyone, nerds included. Thank you for the question, Leftmost Cat. And I use the term nerds affectionately because I think I'm a nerd. I wanted to follow the STR for the bug such and such you created today. I'm trying to remember, is this the bug about favicon sizes? Yeah, I'm currently getting this output in my console. Build list failed. My assumption is there's a problem with the large number of URIs to remove I previously specified. Right-click jump list remove from this list. As I don't believe there is a GUI method to undo this list, could you please demonstrate the SQLite command syntax, terminal, or PowerShell so that it can be cleared for an existing profile and avoid having to create a brand new Firefox profile? That's interesting. Like, there might be there's a problem with the large number of URIs to remove I had previously specified. And I can't believe, I don't believe there's a GUI method to undo this. That's interesting. It sounds like you kind of fell into a bug here with our jump list implementation and how it talks to Windows. And, you know, Windows and Firefox are kind of out of sync with one another in terms of what's going on. There might actually be a bug here. So let's think about that. But before I do any of this, okay, Leftmost Cat says, I do too. I'm watching someone work on software I use and occasionally contribute to, which is, I think, unavoidably nerdy. True say. I'm going to hard agree. Let's do this. Here's what I'm going to suggest. Let's start with this jump list stuff, favicon stuff, continuation from the last couple of episodes. I'd like to investigate this if I, if we get a moment. I'd also like to, this might actually be a separate bug, is what it kind of smells like to me. And this, if we have a time during the stream, I'll try and answer it. And if not, I'll try and save some time towards the end of the stream to just address this immediately. Address it before the end of the stream is what I'll say. Okay, so Windows jump list favicon stuff. Last episode, we gotten to the point where we're getting this stuff to work. We have it working, but batches are a little messy and could be broken up better. We need tests. And what I'm describing here is a refactor. And whenever I'm building stuff like this, one of the things I like to do first before I try and refactor is build out the tests. You know, if you have a nice comprehensive set of tests, then you can build your confidence that your refactor isn't accidentally breaking the stuff that you've just written, which can happen. It's happened more than once for me where, you know, I've had something working, but it's messy, and then I try and clean it up, and I fail to realize that cleanup actually broke a certain condition, or you know, I missed something. So what I like to do in cases like this, after I've kind of like built something but it's a mess, is write the tests and then refactor. And that's a little bit of belt and suspenders to make sure that hopefully you've covered all your bases, the code's clean and it's tested, and you didn't break anything whenever you went from messy to clean. So let's start with writing tests. Let's think a little bit about what we want to test. So what we've done, we have added a new method called obtain and cache favicon async. I believe we've added it to, let's go over to my Windows machine here, to jump list builder, obtain and cache favicon. Do I have the wrong thing checked out? I do have the wrong thing checked out. So I'm actually gonna have to build. I must have, like, I don't know why I went back a revision. I guess I was testing. Oh, I remember why. We were testing to see whether or not the 144 by 144 bug was something that we introduced, and it turns out it isn't. It's a pre-existing bug. So belt and suspenders. Yeah, I had an old manager use that term, and it's stuck with me. Belt and suspenders. It's just being overly cautious. Defense in depth is another way of describing it. Being defensive. So looking at the patch, we have this method, obtain and cache favicon async, and this is what we want to test on NSI jump list builder. So we can create. Here's my thinking for the test. The expectation is that we should be able to use this method to asynchronously clone a favicon from the favicon database to our disk cache for jump list, and that this can happen off of the main thread. And what else? And that if the favicon doesn't exist, and that we get the path back if it exists, or an NS error or an NS non-success result code in the event that the favicon is not in the database or some other error occurs. So that's our first test. Will be test 1. Insert a favicon into the favicon database, and then we're going to use the obtain and cache favicon async method to get its cache path. Let's make sure, ensure that the jump list cache path is empty. Now that actually might be difficult unless we've just created the profile, because the cache will be populated kind of in the background. So in our test here, we want to ensure that that's not actually happening. So this is probably an XPC shell test where we don't just have the browser sitting there running. Method to get its cache path. Ensure that the file exists. Then delete the file as a cleanup. That's our first test. Second test. Try to get a favicon that we know doesn't exist in the favicon database. Ensure that obtain and cache favicon async rejects. I think that's what it does. It rejects in that case, right? Oh, we've got a throws NS error not. Oh, we also need to add documentation. I was just looking at this, and I thought this was the documentation, but we are missing documentation for our function here, so we actually need to add that as well. So that's for the cleanups. Add documentation to NSI jump list builder for a new method. What other tests do we want? We know doesn't exist in the favicon database. Ensure that it rejects with a particular result code. I think that's how it's going to do. Or is it going to what does it do? I think it rejects with a result code. Yeah. And then what else do we want to do? Are there any other cases we want to try testing here? Like, these are the base cases. There are some edge cases that are very difficult for us to test. So, for example, maybe the database has the favicon, but writing it to jump list cache doesn't work because we're out of disk space or something. Like, that's fairly difficult for us to test. So I think what I want to do is really just test these base cases. It's better than nothing. Crushed Optimist says, I submitted the rate this episode question. It does look like a separate bug. The jump list has a couple entries, but it doesn't update anymore. And every few seconds, the console spits out the same error. Obtain and cache the same favicon twice. That's a good idea. Test 3. Obtain and cache the same favicon multiple times should result in us not actually writing a new favicon, but instead returning the path to an existing favicon that has not expired. Oh, test 4. Test expiring a favicon. Artificially, thank you, these are great. Artificially change the last modified time of the file so that it is expired, and ensure that it gets overwritten. That's great. If you think of any more, let me know. These are good tests. So let's start. We're going to be writing some XPC shell tests, and I'm trying to think about where these should go. I think jump list builder's under widget, and I think if we look inside of widget, all the way down here in widget, There is a test folder, and there is one called unit, and I think that's where we put our XPC shell tests. So we're going to be adding a new XPC shell test here. There is a utility, thankfully, for adding new tests, which is really nice. Mock add test, widget, tests, unit, and then we get to come up with a test name. Test, obtain, and cache favicon async. And maybe we'll put like NSI jump list builder, obtain and cache favicon async. Now, there's not really a convention, an exact convention for naming these things, but let's see what the folder convention is. Test taskbar, Mac. I think people can just kind of like make it up. They're doing a lot of underscores. Oops. That's probably fine. Let's go ahead and add that. If a favicon is updated, or was that test 4? That would be test 4. That ensure that it gets overwritten if it expires. What's going on here? Add test. There we go. Okay, so now we have to hg add our test. Tests, unit, test, jump. We have to add it to tracking. We're gonna write a new, one thing I like to do is have the tests be in a separate patch, because that way you can like reorder. You can ensure that the tests fail if your patch doesn't exist. If your fix doesn't exist, that's a nice way of doing it. If they're separated into different commits, you can use like histedit or rebase or whatever to reorder your patches and test the condition where you run the tests, but your patch to fix things doesn't exist. And, you know, in this particular case, we know it will fail because the method that we're testing shouldn't exist. But I guess there's an edge case where we might write a test that is completely bogus and that passes no matter what. And that's what we're trying to like suss out here, is like make sure that our test fails when the fix doesn't exist, that we're actually testing something meaningful. So this is one way of doing that. Add tests for NSI jump list builder, obtain and cache favicon async. I don't know who's going to review that, so I'll not add a reviewer just yet. And let's go and take a look at our test here. So this is the boilerplate test. It doesn't do much. It just is like, okay, true, we're good to go. For some reason, this is going to run some linting. I guess it's been a while since I've done an HG commit. So it's going to lint some stuff and get some stuff. Okay, so now if I do mock build faster, it's going to package the test in our packaging sort of situation. So it noticed that the test was added. It's going to package the test for if we're running in the testing configuration. And then we should be able to run the test with mock test. So when you add a new test, you generally have to build, even though the tests are not included in the build. Like, we don't ship all our tests with Firefox to end users. They're packaged separately. But whenever we add a test, you have to add it to that separate package. And to do that, you need mock build, or mock build faster in this case. Because mock build faster is what does the packaging step. And when you're writing JavaScript or CSS or markup, chances are all you need to do is repackage. Okay. So this is taking a quick sec, but let's go ahead and, for some reason it had to relink. You know what? After I HG updated, did I build again? I did build again. So I don't know why I was being so slow, but let's go mock test, widget, tests unit, test, jump list builder, obtain and cache favicon async. Now this should be fairly quick, and we shouldn't see like a window open up, because this actually just runs XPCOM without any UI or anything. It launches a Firefox, but without any DOM, without any window. An XPC shell test really just runs the JavaScript shell and XPCOM, like a very, very stripped down version of the browser without any UI. Wow. I'm so surprised that it's requiring us to do this part. But okay, we can start writing despite the fact that that's still going to be running. We just won't save the file. So the first test that we talked about was the base case which is inserting a favicon, ensuring the jump list cache path is empty, and then trying to get a favicon to be written there. Okay. So one thing we know is that we're going to want to remember the jump list cache path. We know it's a particular folder called, I think, jump lists. What was it? Jump list cache. It is a constant that's defined on favicon helper, but we're in script here. We don't have access to that constant, so we'll just duplicate it here, which is fine. That's fine. C, and then we'll refer to it. C favicon helper. Okay, and then test get cache, get favicon cache, or write favicon cache. So let's ensure that this folder is empty. Now, one thing that we need is to ensure that there is a profile, because the user profile is where this folder is. It's in the user profile, so we need to make sure that we have a user profile to begin with. And I think we have to do that with this special magic function, do get profile. And so I'm going to actually put that inside of an add setup. Do get profile. The jump Windows jump list favicon cache is in the profile directory. So let's make sure that a profile exists. And then once we're down here, we will make sure that the jump list cache is empty. And if it's not empty, then maybe we should empty it out. So I can't imagine why it wouldn't be empty. We do this like legacy jump list item stuff. I wonder if this might write to that folder. I guess it's possible. I guess it's possible. Would this write? I guess what I'll do is let's make sure that the jump list folder, jump list favicon cache folder. Oh man, I should be consistent. The Windows jump list favicon cache folder is empty to start. So the way we would do that, we're going to use IOUtils, and we're just going to clear out the contents. I think the easiest way is probably just to delete the folder and recreate it. Remove. Remove, and then we're going to remove options, remove recursive, and ignore absent. Okay. Await IOUtils, remove, pathutils.join. I guess maybe cache folder. And then const jump list cache path. Those pathutils join pathutils profile dir jump list cache folder. So we don't need to do that. We're going to remove. And we're going to ignore absent true. And we're going to say recursive true. And then await IOUtils, I think it's make directory, jump list cache path. And what are the options? Make directory options, create ancestors, ignore existing. It's ignored on Windows. Okay, so just, I don't think we need any special options there. Let's do the simplest thing, which is assert, okay, IOUtil, await, IOUtils exists, jump list cache path. I don't expect to keep that. I just want to make sure that this all works, the setup and stuff. Cannot retrieve the directory, profile directory. Oh, right. So I can't do that until the profile exists. So I'm going to put that there. We'll put it at the top of the test before we even do anything. Whoopsie daisy. Column select. In an XPC shell test, that's probably fine. Now, the other thing I like to do for these tests is I like to put a nice comment block up here describing what is being tested. Test that we can, oh, you know what we should do actually is we should maybe factor this out into a utility to just clear out the favicon cache. So that all worked, that's good. I'm gonna factor this out into a utility called async function empty favicon cache, and we'll do that, and then we'll make sure that empty favicon cache to start, and we'll document this. Clears the contents of the Windows jump list favicon cache. Promise undefined. And then test that we can populate the Windows jump list favicon cache with a known favicon from the favicon database. Okay. So what we're going to do is we need to insert a favicon. And I think we actually have some pre-existing tests. Places, tests, places, tests, unit, test. Do we have favi? Uh-oh. Favicon tests. Favicon feed, favicon helpers. Test favicons. Here we go. Most of these are browser tests. That's not a super great sign, but we might be able to do it anyways. And my guess is that there's a couple of test favicons here. Generic favicon. Perfect. We'll use that one. Okay. What are these? That's an SVG. We don't need to actually test that the favicon service works. That's the thing, is we just need to ensure that we're going to properly grab something from the favicon service. So is there a way we could like mock out? Unfortunately, Sign-In doesn't let us mock the favicon service in a way that our C++ would like respect. We could write a version of the favicon service in JavaScript for the purposes of our test, like mock out a simple favicon service. Let's see if that is How big is the favicon service? Just to reduce the sort of stuff that... See, it's maybe too big. Let's replace favicon data, get favicon URL for page. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to just re-implement favicon services in JavaScript or something. I'm going to use the real one, and I'm going to have it remember a particular favicon, because I think I can do that with set and fetch favicon for page, or replace favicon data. Sets the data for a given favicon URI either by replacing existing data or taking the place of otherwise fetched icon data when calling this later. You basically want to do this in the same way that our migration code, our migration code does it. How does our migration code do this? There is a set and fetch favicon for page and replace favicon data. Oh, you have to do one and then the other. You like write the favicon data and then you have to associate it with a particular URI. So this is what we need to do. I remember there's like a weird... Not using the Audio Technica today, says Vinit Kami. No, I'm using... I'm in the office. I didn't bring... my nice headphones are at home, so I just use these old wired headphones when I'm in the office. Less to lug around. So this is what we're going to do. And let's see if any of this is used inside of XPC shell tests. Yes. I can see actually that there are some tests here that do this. Oh, that's the other thing. We want to restrict this test to just run for Windows. This test only makes sense for Windows. So run if equals OS equals win. That's what we want. Skip if OS equals win. These are always being... These tests are not even ever being run. This is... What happened here? We may have made a mistake. I may have reviewed this. Widget. It used to be... sorry, not headless. This one. Tests. Unit. Was moved to widget test toml. It used to be always being skipped for some reason. Why is that? What? Let's look at the log. I'm getting distracted a little bit, but I'm very curious. Why these tests got disabled for everyone except Windows, which is where this thing matters. Set jump list is skipped on Windows independent of version. This happened in fairly recently. This happened 5 months ago. There's some pre-Win 10 code that can be dropped, and then they skipped it because was it the case that we were checking version numbers before? I'll bet it is. We were only running the test because of this bug. We weren't running it on Windows 10 or Azure because of an intermittency failure. Okay. Intermittency problem. Okay. Good to know. Good to know. Let's keep going. So we're going to skip running this test if we're not... We're only going to run this test if we're on Windows. So that's the exact opposite. And we need to write to the favicon cache. We had an example of doing that. Where were we? I lost track. Set and fetch favicon. So there is a places.test URL. Oh, interesting. Do I need to... I might need to have to do that kind of thing. Places.test. Favicons. Files.build. Where did this domain come from? Places.test. Maybe it's just made up. It might just be made up. Which is fine. That's fine. Okay. So... we add a visit to a particular site, then we're going to replace favicon data for a particular URI for our site. We're going to read, what's this? Read file data. That's in places. So we're just going to like slurp the data out as bytes. So that's what we want, is we want bytes. Because replace favicon data takes... what does it take? Presumably. Oh. Replace favicon data takes an array of bytes. Octet. Okay. And I think ioutils.read will give us back bytes. Read will give us back a uint8 array, which is, I think, what we want. Okay. So what I need then is the image, the favicon that we care about. And in this case, I'm just going to copy favicon from toolkit, places, components, places, favicons? Tests, favicons. And I get... favicon, what's a good favicon here? Which one do I want? Expected favicon, favicon multi, favicon big. Let's just take favicon big48.ico. And we're going to copy it to widget, tests, XPC shell, or unit, and we'll call it favicon.ico. Okay, and then, well, I keep going back to there. I'm going to go and say that we need a support file. Just have to remember the format. Support files inside of Toml. You need to say, hey, I think I can just pass it just the file name. Yeah. So I'll go, I forget, support dash files. Support dash files equals / favicon.ico. And it just takes an array, right? Yeah. Okay. Okay, and I'm gonna actually put that under the runif. And let's make sure that that file exists. Const test favicon equals. Well, actually, now that I think about it, I need to have these bytes, and it's kind of annoying to have to. Well, let favicon bytes equal null. We'll read the in our test favicon in add setup. Await favicon bytes equals await IOUtils read, and then the path is, it's like do get file. This is how you do this. Yeah, do get file. Then just do get file should work in the path I'm already in. So do get file favicon.ico.path. Assert OK favicon bytes dot length was able to load the testing favicon. Okay. Let's just see if that works. Meanwhile, in here, we'll start by I'm actually going to move this to the start because we're going to be adding multiple tests. I want to set a good convention, which is starting your test with making sure that the favicon cache is empty. Let's now populate maybe we can do the population here because we only really need to do it once. So const test favicon URI equals https:// widget.test is that going to work? Is it going to be happy with that? We'll see. And then we're going to insert. So places utils. I'm going to need places utils. How do I get places utils? Chrome utils import ES module. This. Const places utils equals that. And then we can do places utils. We need to add the visit. So we'll add a visit. Add a visit to a page URI. Places, and then there's places test utils. Oh, geez. Okay. So we need that one as well. Sure. Places test utils. Add visits. Was it add visits? Add visits, and we await. Test favicon URI. So we add our visit, and now we need to add our favicon. test, I guess, actually call this test page URI. And then test favicon URI equals test page URI. We're gonna use a template string here. Oh. Slash favicon.ico. So we add the visit, and then we need to say replace the favicon data, and then favicon for the page. New URI, root icon URL, data, image ping. Okay. I actually don't know what format this favicon.ico is. Whoa, okay. Will it tell me if I open the folder and do properties, type of file.ico, what's the image type, item type ICO? It's a bitmap basically. .icos I think are bitmaps. Place favicon data. What does it want here? Is this supposed to be the data, is it a hint? What is it? MIME type. A MIME type of the data store. This is important so that we know what to report when the favicon is used. You should always set this parameter unless you are clearing an icon. Replace favicon data. Okay. So how do I say it's just for an ICO? What's the MIME type for an ICO? Image X icon? Is that the MIME type for an ICO? Let's say yes. Let's say that that's the MIME type for an ICO. So we need to await new promise resolve because this thing we're about to call does not return a promise per se. Replace the favicon data URI. So does it not return a callback either? Replace favicon data. There is no callback. An expiration time. It's optional. Loading principle optional. Okay, so we don't need to await anything here. We're just gonna go ahead and do this. Places utils favicons dot place favicon data. Test favicon URI, and then the data favicon bytes, and then image / X icon. Now, we might actually not need these bytes. Favicon bytes. Again, we're not testing whether or not the favicon service works. We'll assume it works, so we don't actually need to check byte per byte. We just need to make sure that a file was written. I guess we are doing some kind of conversion, but I don't want to compare. So we're writing a particular file. Oh, geez. I think for our purposes, I'm just going to test that a file exists. Maybe we can sniff it and see whether or not it's a valid image file, but I'm not going to do like a pixel by pixel comparison. So we replace the favicon data, and then there's this helper function, set favicon for page. This is what I want to do. Whoopsie daisy. Page URI. So I don't need to do some of this stuff. I'm going to create a new URI for the page. Services.io new URI. That icon URI equals services.out new URI test favicon URI. And then we're going to return a new promise that resolves whenever we do this. Set and fetch favicon for page URI, icon URI, force reload. Optional. We're going to say true. Whether to enforce reloading the icon. Okay, well, we'll say true. Favicon load non-private. We'll resolve and we'll say we're doing this with the system principal. Okay, let's see if this passes. This had failed because favicon does not exist. XPC shell widget tests unit. Favicon.ico does not exist. Did I not do that right? Favicon.ico. Do I need... Is the ./ a problem? Maybe that's the problem. And maybe I need to mock build again. Because I'm packaging. I have to package the thing in the tests. Reticulating splines. You made typo. Test page URL. Did I make a typo? This might be old news. Test page URL instead of test page URI. Yeah, you're right. Good call. Thank you. Thank you, Ocris. Okay, well, while we're waiting for this, let's address some of those questions. Oh, what was this? Why are we doing a full build again? Did I happen to touch like the IDL and now it's like you need to build. Let's see what happens. We should be getting SC cache to help us here. But let's let that cook in the background. Meanwhile, let's try and answer some of these questions. I'm seeing you doing special builds. I'm really curious where and how this is working. How does Mock know what files and folders to use and which ones to override? So I'm doing special builds, and I'll start with what I use to switch between those things, which you may have heard me talk about this already. There's this tool from a colleague by his name is Andrew Halberstadt. He wrote this thing called Moz Config Wrapper, and that allows you to maintain multiple Moz configs. And a Moz config is really kind of like, that's where all your configuration goes. A Moz config file is this sort of, it exists and it describes what you want to build and how you want to build it, what flags to use, etc. A Moz config that's very Mozilla specific. It's not like it's not something that like Make necessarily knows how to interpret. It's a specific. It's a simple file format, but it includes directives inside it that describe how to do a build, what options to add to the compiler, what options to add to Make. Because ultimately, under the hood, I think we're using Make to make stuff. And if you're not familiar with Make, Make is a very useful tool, though it is somewhat arcane to maintain Make files. But we don't actually maintain our own Make files. We generate Make files programmatically using something called a moz.build file. So it's a little bit of meta-programming. But let me start from the very beginning. I have this thing called Moz Config Wrapper. It's a very useful tool. And what it allows you to do is to switch back and forth between different Moz configs. And for the purposes of our discussion, think of a Moz config as a configuration for a particular build. And so that's very handy. Now let's talk about Moz configs. And this is how I'm choosing like a debug build or a default build or an artifact build or a Thunderbird build, is I'm choosing a different Moz config. And those Moz configs, when I'm using Moz Config Wrapper, are inside of my home directory inside of a folder called .moz configs, I think. I think that's how it works. You can read up more about Moz Config Wrapper here. I'll put a link inside the agenda. So Moz Config Wrapper. There's a link here. Check that out. Now, what is a Moz config? We can actually look some of that up inside of source docs. Moz config files. configure how a build works. So I'm going to put this in here. But basically, there's a bunch of stuff that you can add to your Moz config. And like you can, let's take a look at my Moz config right now for my Windows build. So these are all my build flags. Like I'm telling, MK I think stands for make. And it's saying, hey, I want the auto clobber environment variable set to 1, and here's the obj_dir where I want you to put the stuff that you build. I want it to go into this particular folder. And then these are like AC, I think stands for auto config, which is another tool that we use. It's like tools upon tools upon tools, but this is like passing certain flags to the autoconf tool that basically is like another way of it's another layer in how we configure our builds. Like, to be clear, it's tools upon tools upon tools here. You've got moz.builds creating, like you've got a moz config setting different flags. You've got moz.builds describing the relationship between different files and folders in our tree. And then you've got all these special scripts that ultimately produce make files, autoconf files, and config files. And then those are consumed by like compilers and build tools to ultimately produce your build. And if that sounds arcane, it's because it is. It's like this, a lot of this stuff is from back in the day, and it's like different tools built on top of different things because the tools needed to be more flexible and stuff. But yeah, here I'm saying, hey, I want you to build in browser, the browser directory. That's the application that I want you to build, because Mozilla Central, you can tell it, hey, I want you to build Thunderbird, and in that case, what you do is you give it a different folder name. Do I have Thunderbird in here? Com TB? Yeah. Like, well, actually, Moz config. Let's look at our list here. If I look at Moz config's TB artifact, I was saying I want you to build this enable project, build the application under com/mail, which is the folder that exists for Thunderbird. Whoops. That's under source, com, mail. So in here, there is a description of, Thunderbird is in here. I think it's under like maybe moz.configure or something. But that's what our ultimate build system is using to like sort of figure out how to build the app. Maybe it's app.mozbuild. I don't know. But I digress. Those build flags and Moz config things get fed into a bunch of scripts. I think there's something called, like the mock build command invokes a bunch of stuff. And one of those things, one of those things it invokes takes these moz.build files and constructs information about what we're going to build. And you've maybe seen these files, moz.build. They're in almost every single folder in our tree. In fact, let's see the one for widget. Widget. Is there a moz.build? Why, yes, there is. Moz.build. And it says, like, okay, well, there's a lot of information in here. And a moz.build is actually a special variant of Python. There's, like, some scripting and logic capabilities. See, we've got ifs in here. It's like a special slimmed-down variant of Python. And what we're creating is trees. We're describing to some build step a bunch of trees to say, like, okay, I have these IDL files, and I need you to compile them using XPIDL. And here's a description of where those files need to go in our build system. Like, maybe I only want to build them if we happen to be using GTK or we're only on Windows. Here are some where some test directories are. Maybe here's the header files that I need to like make available across the tree. Or maybe here are the header files that I need to be available across the tree in a particular folder. And here are sources, some C++ I need you to build. This is all kind of encapsulated inside of a moz.build. And there's a lot of documentation about moz.build in here. And you can read up on the technical details. I highly recommend checking it out. But at this point, my expertise on what exactly is going on kind of drops off. I know that our build system is taking those moz.build files and doing a lot of things, but one of those things is producing make files. And then we run make. And that builds it. That actually invokes the various compilers and whatnot. Akris asks, do you ever run mock clobber manually, or auto clobber always works for you? Sometimes I run mock clobber manually when I want to make it clear that I want to just blow away everything. Auto clobber really only does anything if you're doing a build and it determines it needs to blow away everything for the build to succeed. Sometimes I just want to get rid of everything for a particular reason. So I'll have the auto clobber environment variable set, but I might run mock clobber by myself. And mock clobber, to be clear, is what it's doing is it's just destroying your obster. So all the built artifacts, they get cleared away. Okay, let's go back to our test. Hopefully I answered that one question sufficiently. If you're not, that was a very unstructured kind of like brain dump on this stuff. If you have additional questions, feel free to ask them with the Rate This Episode form, and I'll try my best to go deeper. And maybe I'll get a chance to address this one later this episode. Okay, so we've got our test here. Let's go back to... Did our build finish? I think it did, and we're going to try running our tests. See what happens. Tests. So ideally, this should just pass. There are no assertions. Oh, there's one assertion. So this should come back green and everything's working correctly. You can always follow the path things take since it's open source. So mock build, for example. Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's somewhat exhaustive and it's a little bit of a maze to follow through, but you can find where mock build starts. It's mock command. Mock commands. Let's find the build mock command. Build. It's probably going to be pretty early on. Mock commands, mozboot. I mean, what you could do, one way of finding the stuff is going like mock build -- help, and then seeing, this is what I like to do, build the source tree. So this seems like a pretty handy string to search for. We can search the tree for this, build the source tree. Here we go, build commands. And then you can see what this does. And this is going to be a long journey because I have a feeling it kind of spirals out a little bit, but you can start investigating what mock build does. Okay, so our test failed because favicon bytes is not defined because, where was I using them? Favicon. Right, I need to do this. Favicon bytes. And this whole line doesn't make sense. That's like a leftover lingering line. So now let's try running our test. Okay, while we're waiting for that to run, let's think about this. We've got our favicon inserted. We know that the favicon cache is empty. So now we can invoke our special function. And so we need to get access to the jump list builder. And so one thing we can do is probably do that up here. Oh, still no good. Could not convert JavaScript argument arg0. Arg0 is for place favicon data. Argument 0, place favicon data on line 36, which was this. Arg0, test favicon URI. Oh, is that supposed to be... This might need to be an NSI URI. Yeah, it needs to be an NSI URI, not a string. Okay. So... Well, let's put these up here, actually. see. Oh boy. Okay. Let's presume that that's going to pass. Yes, it passed. Okay, great. So now, let us get access to the jump list builder. And we actually have some manual testing code that we were using that maybe we can take advantage of. We can get access to Win taskbar jump lists. Well, I think we don't necessarily want to be testing Windows jump lists. We want to be create instance jump list builder. Builder equals create. So we want access to the taskbar service is what we want. Okay. Const xbcomutils equals comutils import es module resource tree modules xbcomutils systemjs. And that generally goes to the top because it's fairly common. And well, in retrospect, we don't actually need to make this lazy. So what am I doing? I can just say like const taskbar service equals cc this get service cisi win taskbar. But what I am going to do is const app constants utils import es module resource tree app constants and make sure that we are app constants.platform equals we're going to make sure those are equal is running under Windows. Let's take a look. This should work. While we're waiting for that to run, let's go ahead and get access to our builder. Const builder jump list builder equal taskbar service. You know what? Win is not defined. Right. That's why. Assert okay. Got NSI win taskbar. Jump list builder's taskbar service. Create jump list builder false. What is the definition of that one? Is private window, I think. A private browsing, yeah. Jump list builder, assert okay. Got an NSI jump list builder. Okay. So now we have our builder. And we should be able to await jump list builder, obtain and cache favicon async, and it should be for this page URI. And oh, you know what? It needs to be an NSI URI. I wonder if what we can do here is we can simplify this. Say services ion new URI. I guess we don't need the strings. Services ion new URI. And then we don't need to recreate them down here. Add visits. Does add visits take an NSI URI as well? Add visits takes an NSI URI, or it can't. It's nice and flexible. So we'll just pass that. We don't need to do this anymore. Favicon URI. Don't need to do this anymore. Page URI. Favicon URI. Okay, and then obtain and cache favicon async. Let's make sure that that returns. The formatting string will still work with NSI URI. It should, because our JavaScript engine should return an NSI. This should resolve first as a string or an actual URL, and then we pass that to new URI. I think that should work. But could not convert JavaScript argument on line 14. Am I wrong? Am I wrong? On line 14. What? What do you mean? Is running, cannot convert JavaScript argument. Is running under Windows. Jump list builder. Am I doing this wrong? What in the world? Get service. Taskbar. Let's run it again. Could not convert JavaScript argument. What argument on line 14? NSI. Am I spelling that right? NSI win taskbar. That should be right. Yeah. Windows taskbar. Get service. What do you mean? What JavaScript argument? All right, well, run. Let's try running this ourselves. Aha, doesn't like it. Why? CI, NSI. What's the difference? Win task. Oh, casing. Casing. It's not the same. Guess what, everybody? Casing. Bar, lowercase b. Amazing. I'm so glad I spent time on that. All right, run the test. Okay, so the while we're waiting for this, is it possible for me to think about this a little bit? Currently getting this output in my console. Build list failed. NS error unexpected. My assumption is that there is a problem with the large number of URIs to remove. I don't believe there's a GUI method to undo this list. Can you please demonstrate the SQLite command syntax so that it can be cleared for an existing profile? Build list failed. NS error unexpected. Let's go here for a second. Windows jump lists. 281. Right. So there's probably a more interesting part of the stack here. I would hope there would be. But we're getting an NS error unexpected. Probably when calling populate. Because one of the items that we are trying to provide did not properly get removed. But it should be doing this. Check for removals. Remind me again how that works. Check for removals. We start with the creation of the list. We begin list on the jump list backend. We began a list in order to get the removals, which we can now abort. I'd be very curious if you're willing, Okris. I think, Okris, you were the one who said you were experiencing this? I'd be very curious to know whether or not you're getting any items back. If you can, like, spin up the browser toolbox, which, if you're interested, I can walk you through that. But I'd be very curious to know what... oh man, Windows jump list. What you're getting for here, like, is this executing? It should be executing. Oh, it was Crushed Optimist. Thank you very much, Crushed Optimist. If you are watching Crushed Optimist, are you familiar with the browser toolbox? I'm very curious, because I want to see whether or not this stuff is happening. Because this is supposed to solve that particular problem. But maybe we are not clearing history under certain circumstances. And I'd like to know what those circumstances are. So do let me know. Crushed Optimist. I'm not familiar. Okay, so here's some debugging steps. Are you running nightly or release or beta? Do you know which version of Firefox you are running? Release. Okay. So in order to enable the browser toolbox in release, what you need to do, this is my instance of Firefox. You need to. Are you familiar with the dev tools in general, Crushed Optimist? The Firefox dev tools? Let me know. Okay, so that runs. Let's cache path, assert, okay, cache path, got a non-empty cache path. Best to assume no is the default answer. Okay, so the dev tools, if you right click on, say, the new tab page here, you can open up the dev tools by choosing inspect. That's one way of getting to it. There are lots of ways of getting to it, but these are the browser, like the sort of the web page dev tools. And don't be overwhelmed. There's a lot going on here. But what I want to draw your attention to is this little meatball menu or the kebab menu over here. We're going to click on that, and we're going to go to settings right here, this gear menu or gear item. And then you want to enable browser Chrome and add-on debugging toolboxes and remote debugging. If you click both of those, then you should have a new item available. What's going on here? You should have a new item inside of the menu under more tools, you should have something called Browser Toolbox available here. When that launches, it looks like this. And what I would be interested in you doing is you can go to the debugger here. It might take a second for it to sort of like sort itself out. The debugger, if you hit, if you're on, are you on Windows or Mac OS or Linux? If you're on Mac OS, Command P will open up this little selector. If you're on Windows, Control P should do it, and you want to type in Windows. Well, I can't, I'm not on Windows, so it's not going to show up for me. Hang on a second. Let's do it over here. Ugh. Anyway, more tools. Browser Toolbox. Control P on Windows. Of course you're on Windows, now that I think about it, because you're talking about jump lists. So if you Control P, you should see Windows jump lists in the list. And then from here, if you go down to, I think it'll be like line 177. These are the instructions that Firefox is executing. And what we're looking for is line 200 or so. And if you click on that line and then wait for a little bit. Well, or you don't have to wait. Actually, let me give you a snippet of code that you can run to avoid the wait. If you then switch to the console, and the snippet of code is this. Put in the agenda. And then, oh man, is this at all readable? And then the next line is win taskbar jump list dot update. So if you run those two things over here, where it says console, if you go over here, type in that or paste it in, and then win taskbar jump list dot update. Press enter, you'll get snapped over here to the debugger, and now you are stepping through the instructions. I'm very curious, when you hit the step over button, it's gonna like execute the instruction and send you somewhere. I'm very curious to know where it goes. Like, you can look to see whether or not the removed URLs is of any size just by hovering it. And in this case, there are no removed URLs for me. I'm curious to know if there are for you, how long they are. I want to know if you enter this clear history method when you hit step. I'm not, but you might. And then you can step into, like when it highlights this line, if you hit step into, you'll go over to the clear history method. I want to know if and when it fails. And you can send me a message, you can send me a message about what's going on. You don't have to provide the actual URLs, but I actually think what you're experiencing is a bug, and I'd like to know more, because we should get that bug on file, and there might be something we can do here. But I want to know if you actually end up entering clear history. That's my request to you, and we can help debug this together. Okay, so our test, I'm almost done the stream, I think. I'm almost at time, but let's see if we can, we got a non-empty cache path. What did it write? Console, did it pass? Got a non-empty cache path. Hooray! And then, is that like the base test? Ensure that the jump list cache path is empty, get the cache path, ensure that the file exists, and then delete the file as cleanup. Well, we don't have to necessarily delete the file as cleanup because the next test, I'm going to make it a convention to always start a test with this. So let's just make sure now that the file exists. A file assert okay, a cache file exists. A file exists at the cache path. And then can we do like, how do we test to see whether or not it's a valid image? Can we do like MIME type sniffing or something? Is image. Is an image MIME type. How do we like sniff the MIME type? Sniff MIME. Sniff MIME. Okay, do we have something called like MIME type sniff? Content sniffer. Content sniffer. What is this? Get MIME type from content. Given a chunk of data determines a MIME type. Get MIME type from content. That sounds interesting. Can we use that? Test content sniffer. Return sniff type. Oh, this is just an override. If I can make a new channel. Test files. We really don't test that thing, eh? Content sniffer. Sniffer, get MIME type from content, create a channel. The channel is what? I think I can use netutil to create a channel. And then we get a type back. Okay, let's do that. Let's... let channel equals netutil. I think I have to... netutil. Where do I get... oh, I can pass null and then the favicon data. Okay, let's do that. Assert okay, sniffer, get MIME type from content, null, and then we're going to pass in the data. So let's read in the data. Let favicon bytes equals await ioutils.read cache path. I'm going to say favicon bytes.length. Let's see what that does. Okay, we got back an image X icon. Great. Assert okay. Assert equal. Const favicon MIME type equals image slash X icon. Replace that with that. And down here, assert equal an image was written to the path. Okay. Good. That's our first test. Now the next thing we can do is we can see what happens. Let's get the last modified time. Last modified time equals await ioutils stat favicon or cache path. Maybe we should call these cache bytes. Cache bytes. Last modified time equals IOUtils.stat. And then we want the last modified await. Yeah, last modified. Let last modified equals await that, and then we're going to run this again. Let second call cache path equals this. We're going to do it again. And we're going to assert that the paths are equal. Second call cache path is equal to cache path. We're going to call this actually first call cache path. So first call cache path got back the same path the second time. And then let's assert that the last modified time equal await IOUtils.stat second call cache path last modified should equal last modified. The file did not get written to again. Let's see if that works. Some formatting to fix in here, but otherwise that seems fairly nice. Oh, cache path is not defined. Where did I write cache path? Line 79. First call cache path. And that takes care of test. What was it? Test 1. We did this. We kind of are doing test 3 at the same time. So 1 and 3 are taken care of. And then let's try 2 and 4 next time. Now that we've got, oh, come on. File did not get written to again. Undefined. Wait. How is that undefined? Why would it be undefined? Last modified. IOUtils. WebIDL. When is file info last modified? Let first call let second last modified equals await IOUtils.stat second call cache path. Oh, you know what? I think I know what it is. I think it's that. We have to await the promise. Otherwise, I think what it was trying to do was getting this property off of the promise that was returned before awaiting. I think that's what was going on. Crushed Optimist. If you're interested in following up with me on that thing, I'm happy to help walk you through this stuff personally, because I have a vested interest in making sure that this works properly. You can, let's see, what's the best way to get in touch with me? You can email me. mconnelly@mozilla.com. You can go ahead and email me, and I'll work with you if you'd like. Okay, so that all worked out. Let's maybe stop there. Let's take a look at the diff. Yeah, nice, simple test. Does a bunch of interesting stuff. We're gonna HG amend, and we'll keep going. Next week we'll see if we can take care of cases 2 and 4. That should be straightforward. That shouldn't take us too long, and then we can start doing our cleanup. All right. Well, thanks everybody. Thanks for watching episode. What episode was this? 362 of The Joy of Coding. I hope that was interesting. I know we were kind of struggling with a little bit of machine speed here. I'm looking forward to maybe getting off of the Windows development train, and maybe even getting in touch with some people about getting a new machine. I think my 2017 Tower is starting to finally show its age. So, thanks for watching. Thanks for surviving the slow build times and the slow test execution times. Let me know what you thought. There's a link at the bottom of the agenda here to rate this episode, and you can also use it to ask me questions. These 2 questions that I was talking about today, those came in through this form. So if you're interested in asking a question, go ahead and if you want debugging in general, Matrix is also good. You can just talk to us here in Matrix. Danny Cullen writes to Crushed Optimist. You can also just talk to us in Matrix. So if you're curious on how to do that, there's a link under the agenda here for chat, I think, where you can join us in Matrix and talk to us. Fill out the form. Here's the rate this episode form. I just dropped that in the chat. I read everything that comes in. It's a great resource for me anyways, but it's also an opportunity for you to ask me questions, and I'll do my best to try and answer them on the stream. And with that, I'm going to call it there. Thanks, everybody. Have yourselves a great week. Take care. Bye-bye.
The joy of coding.
See ya.